The woman suddenly opened her eyes and realized she wasn't lying on a hospital bed. Looking around, she saw an unfamiliar, finely decorated room that had nothing to do with the ward she remembered. A robed figure appeared out of thin air. He told her she had entered a novel, and the only way to return to the real world was to anger her brother enough to turn him dark. Before she could even process this shocking revelation, the immortal-like figure dissolved into specks of light and vanished. Clinging to the only clue she had, the woman went straight to her brother's residence. Catching him off guard, she tied him to the bed with a rope she had prepared. On the table lay various tools, and a faint blush crept onto her face. Her brother's eyes were filled with confusion as she picked up a pair of pliers, twisting her body as if to signal him to remove what was in her mouth. She yanked the sock out of his mouth. Ignoring whatever he tried to say, she focused solely on completing her task of provoking him. As her hands roamed over him, the virtual panel on her wrist suddenly lit up, showing his emotional fluctuations rising sharply. The sight thrilled her, and a smile of excitement spread across her lips. She picked up a knife and cut the rope binding him. Rubbing his numbed wrists, her brother only looked more bewildered. Just then, the door swung open and several bodyguards entered. Seeing the scratches on her hand, her brother didn't scold her. Instead, he told her to tend to her wound and even explained the situation to the guards, as if protecting her. While the others exchanged confused glances, her brother bent down, lifted her into his arms, and carried her straight to the infirmary. When they were alone, he fixed his gaze on her, eyes probing and unyielding. She tried to dodge his stare, but he pressed her for answers, insisting she hug him and explain herself. At that very moment, his fiancée walked in. Her face flushed crimson as she caught sight of them embracing, her eyes blazing with fury as she glared at the woman, silently demanding an explanation. That night, the woman sneaked into her brother's bathroom, scissors in hand, her gaze landing on the pants hanging on the rack. She cut into the fabric, but before she could finish, footsteps approached from behind. Her brother picked up the pants with a missing corner, and instead of anger, a smile spread across his face. He bent down, lifted her effortlessly, and placed her into a bathtub filled with warm water. As the rippling warmth brushed against her ankles, she looked up into his fathomless eyes and for a moment completely forgot her original mission.